Safari Small Schools is offering a free homeschool workshop for parents this summer on June 4th at 2 p.m. Central. To learn more, text Safari to 33777.
All right. And along with that, I wanted you to talk today about your assessments. And for folks who are not familiar, typically in the public school, like Dr. Sanders was explaining at the spring, there's typically a state test, especially for there's different grades in different states that they consider like their benchmarks. And then there's progress reports that go out every so many weeks. And I always thought that was strange to me because to me, a progress report should be sent when progress is made, not specifically on a certain date. But
Yeah.
that's typically how things work in the public school system. And, different teachers have different, multiple choice tests, more comprehensive assessments and essays and things like that. But there's typically assessments, kind of going on throughout the week and then the month. And then, like I said, there's different times throughout the year.
Mhm.
So how are your assessments different in your small school? Are there things about the traditional public school assessments that you've kept? Some of the outlying strategies that you've kept, and then how have you kind of changed it with what you're doing?
Well, so the assessment process, and yeah, I did pull some of the concepts from from the assessments from the public school system, but just simplified it because I just need to know what a student can do. I just need to know what you can do. We can't start instruction before I know what you can do. And so I really did keep it pretty easy. And so I look at the state standards and then I determine, okay, what is this child supposed to know? And then I'll take something as simple as like maybe this,
Uh-huh.
just something simple like this. And based on what the state standard is, what does this kid know? How many words does this child know? And so then you look at, you go through, circle the ones that the child does know, and then you date it. And then maybe after you've done some instruction with reading, um, sight words, those types of things, you go back maybe in a couple weeks and you look at how much more they've mastered. It, there's and it's not hard. It's just very basic. I don't need anything to be really difficult or confusing. I just need to know, what does this kid know? Based on what the standards are saying that the child should know, what does this kid know? The internet has a ton of free assessment material that's available to anybody who cares to look it up and find it. And basically, it's not like the $1 million stuff that the school district pays for every year. It's just very basic stuff. And so I've never used this one yet, but I'm thinking that this might be more for a child who, it could be for a child who has developmental issues or something to that effect. So you can use different things you can use different assessment tools um, for different needs. Math batteries. Also, I'm not a speed person. I'm not looking at speed right away. I want to know if you can solve a problem. That's what I
Right.
want to know. Can you do basic math? Can you, whatever, at the preschool level, do you know your colors? Do you know your shapes? Do you know how to form letters, or do you know what sounds they make? That type of thing. Kindergarten, can you do basic math, even with counters or manipulatives of your fingers? Do you know that the plus sign means add more? You know that the dash means take away. Those things, nothing difficult, nothing complex, Just simple. What do you know?
Right.
And so I've put together, I've got the state standards, and I also have up to third grade a whole binder where I have several different that I've pulled from the internet, several different assessment tools that I keep handy. And when I enroll students, I sit, I talk, I assess them from the low point of where they should be, and I learn what they can do, and then I go from there. So it's definitely not complex or mind-boggling. Super simple, just
Yeah.
simple,
And just the
simple.
fact that you're doing it individually
Yeah.
and you're allowing, because one thing when I had my English language tutoring program, I did a lot of oral assessments because a lot of
Yeah.
my students could say it or they could point to
Mhm.
things, but they couldn't. But on the normal assessment where it was writing or they had to read something, they had trouble with that. But they
Sure.
could see, but they're so they kind of like weren't getting credit for the ability that they had because the assessment
Right.
wasn't, individual. It wasn't oral. It was all written.
Yeah.
And I think, again, some of that with the traditional schools, they're doing this in mass. Whereas what we're talking about is doing it like on a more individual,
Hmm.
scope. But again, with the funding, especially students with special needs, they even in the public schools, they need to be getting more of that individual, time, pulling them aside and doing some of these. And yeah, with the sight words, I used to go through those individually with students, and then each week they would all have different words.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like everybody had the same list every week. It was everybody had their own little baggie, and I put their
Yes.
little words in it, and then they come in, and then when they mastered it, then they got a new one. If they didn't, then they got
Yes.
that one another week, and it was no
Ex-
big deal. It wasn't
Exactly.
like negative,
Oh
50.
yeah, there's nothing negative. Just okay, so you didn't get it in a week. Okay,
Right.
well then we'll just keep
Okay.
working
Yeah.
on it. And something else that I don't like about what's happening in public schools with assessments, all assessments are now moving online. All moving online. So the map testing, the any benchmark testing for reading and all of that, it's all moving online. Now, my son is almost 23. He's in an engineering program about to finish this year. It just super smart kid, always has been. He doesn't do well learning online. He doesn't like it. He can make it happen, but it does not work for him, and he is very vocal about that. So as a young man and adult, he has learned to suck it up and just kind of do it. But what do we do with 5, 6, 7 year olds, 7 year olds, 8 year olds, 9 year olds who don't know how to suck it up and just deal with it?
Yeah.
You're forcing kids to learn online when that does not work for them. It works great for me. It does not work great for my son.
Right.
So my thought is, why are we forcing the kids to do this when it's not working for them? Well, it works for the school district. That's why
Yeah.
they're doing this.
Yeah.
The paper-based tests are going away, and
Mm.
that's not good for all kids.
Yeah.
And so what you
Yeah,
have
especially
is,
if they're coming from another culture, another country where they don't have computer skills. They
yeah,
may be refugees, so now they're being assessed on their computer skills, and that's a
computer
totally
skills.
different assessment than even the educational content that they're supposed to be
Just a
learning.
whole different mess. And